How you doing? What's going on, my friends? What is up? How are we today? Welcome back to another live. Knife TK, Camille, Naveen, Scrams, David Cooper. Good to see you all here. Thank you for joining today's live video. Not going to be a long one again. I have a school thing to go to for my son later today in like an hour, so it's not going to be too long, but we'll get into whatever we can. A few things to talk about today. Obviously, we'll start with, in a moment here, the exclusive information I put out just about an hour and a bit ago. This is one of the things that I was hinting at in a previous video that I wanted to see if I was waiting for. I've been sitting on it for a few days, waiting to just be allowed to share this type of thing. I did say it wasn't transfer related, but I do think these things are important. So I'll put that up here in a moment as everybody files in. But yes, I hope you are all doing well today. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone is doing well. 2.5 is too low. 2.5 is too low. All right. I definitely as well today want to discuss kind of these stories about the club being kind of on the market, sort of, not exactly. I want to explain what that actually means, the clauses in the expiring purchase agreement. Well, I should say the expiring clauses in the purchase agreement for the partial takeover that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos did with the Glazers in that agreement. I want to talk about that because that's an interesting story. Obviously, potentially, there's a very big story there, but there's a bit of detail to get into on that before it actually is much of a story. And then we'll talk about some sales, some transfer things, and all of that. So, yeah, Qatar in. No, definitely not. That's one thing I can say at the start of this show. Qatar not buying Manchester. You know what's really... No. I'll wait. We're going to talk about that. I will wait, and we will talk about it because more people are going to be here in a minute. And that's obviously a very interesting topic. All right, let's just tweet out. Some stuff about this on the takeover and all of that, just so people know we are going to discuss that in detail, as I want to make sure people know. I saw a couple very, very funny ones similar to your comment there, Mikkel's. James Source's Luke Shaw confirmed, which is pretty funny. I saw a few of those, like, oh, it's somebody who knows the medical staff really well. No, actually, but I have backed Luke Shaw to have a very good season. And game one, I'm off to a good start. Game one, my faith in Luke Shaw has been held up as of yet. So, again, just waiting for people to file in. We'll talk about the doctor. We'll talk about the takeover stuff, and we'll talk about some transfers and get into it. As we get in here, please do smash a like on the video. And I'll put this little poll up, and then we will get going. I did mention, by the way, that I have one more piece of news, and it is more closely related to the club sale takeover-ish aspect of things. But I can't do it yet. Similar to something like this, I can't do it yet. I'm still working on it. It's much more complicated to confirm. It's much more complicated to get the details on. It's much more complicated to get a clear story on it. So I can't do it yet. I can't say anything on it yet because I'm not even 100% sure. But it is more related to like the higher level stuff around the club and the takeover and the stadium and that kind of stuff. So once we get there, once I can and I'm certain of it, then I'll share what I can on that. It doesn't matter what you pay me now. I can't do it. It's good news. I mean, it's just news. I don't even know if it's good news. It's just good. It's good news. Yeah. I would say it's good news. I mean, it depends on your perspective always to a degree, but I would say it's good news. But yeah, it doesn't matter. I've got to hold on to it until I can be sure. And then it could be very important. It could be very important. Yeah, it could be very important to the ongoing big picture projects that are ongoing at Manchester United. There's a lot of things that are tied into this. Then with the stadium, with ownership, there's so much that is all sort of intermingled in the future that have a big effect on the long term for United. Its security, its safety, its ability to become a top club. I mean, news is news. You know what I mean? News is news. So hopefully soon. All right, let me stick this poll up and then we'll get going. Elon Musk buying us again. No, it's not that. I can promise you that. I mean, maybe that'll happen, but it's nothing that I would know about. All right, let's talk about the doctor first. Let's get into it now. All right. Okay, here we go. So this was obviously from my tweet earlier. It is that Dr. Imtiaz Ahmad, head of sports medicine at Crystal Palace, is set to join Manchester United to succeed Gary O'Driscoll, who remains in his position to assure a smooth transition. Dr. Imtiaz Ahmad is presently serving a notice period at Palace and will join in due course. It is a fairly lengthy notice period, but it's been ongoing for at least a month, maybe longer, and there's more to go. United's medical team has undergone massive overhauls in recent years, all overseen by performance director Sam Arith. It's understood. I said understand. This is why I'm not a writer and that I do things on video. They're quite happy to have lined up another excellent addition to the team. Now, Dr. Ahmad previously was at Tottenham, QPR, and then he joined Palace only last year. I think, ironically, he joined Palace to replace the doctor who left Palace to join Arsenal, to replace Gary O'Driscoll, who joined us. So now we're getting the guy who replaced the guy who replaced the guy we got, which, if you think of it in transfer terms, is kind of like when we should have been getting the player that the team we bought the player from that didn't succeed, they bought the replacement, and, you know, all of that. Regardless, it is a good thing, obviously. I think that certainly one of the biggest things that we've seen improvements on recently at United, and we continue to need to see more improvements on, that will have a big effect on United's overall success, is the improvements in the area to performance, health, and medicine. Players being more fit, players returning from injury quicker, players getting less injured, players, just lots of things like that tend to improve. I mean, when we look at it, guys like Luke Shaw, guys like Mason Mount, who we know are talented individuals, talented players, but have been so devastated by injuries, it would be nice. So this is a good news. This is good. Getting people who are qualified and competent in these areas. I know it sounds silly because it's like the basics of what need to be in place, but these are a lot of things that we haven't done. Yeah, he worked as a doctor for Tottenham and England's youth sides as well. Really experienced, very, very experienced. And I will tell you also that obviously this is a little more like word of mouth and things like that, but I've heard from people, I am confident that this is true for what it's worth. I have heard from people on the Crystal Palace side, it's going to be a big loss for them. that they've been over at Crystal Palace incredibly impressed with him. So it's not just United being like, oh, yeah, we're really happy we got somebody, because they're always going to say that, right? Not that I don't think it's true. It's not just United being happy that they got someone. They're always going to think they've got the right person and that they've got that. But on the Crystal Palace side, big loss. Somebody they really like and think has been really impressive in his time there. I mean, what can you say about doctors and things like that? I mean, I'm not qualified to comment on the details of that too much, but yeah, he is somebody that on the Palace side they think is spectacular. Now, one thing I want you to know, all right, one thing that people should not do with doctors, because I already saw it in quote tweets of something like, Crystal Palace have the worst number of injuries. All right, listen to me very, very carefully. Doctors don't cause injuries, okay? Doctors don't cause injuries. All right? Doctors don't cause injuries. What doctors are responsible for at a club is helping them not have recurring injuries, helping them get back on their feet quicker, helping them ensure that they know where they're at, and all of that. Managers cause injuries, okay? Playing style, pushing players past the limit, and players themselves cause injuries. But yes, if you didn't know, Gary O'Driscoll is leaving, which was also my exclusive story from back in January. So I've got both ends of this. I've got both ends of this, okay? Of this story, which has been nice. Funnily enough, from totally different people. It's just things happen, you know? So I got the doctors leaving, and now I've got the replacement, and kind of lucked into a lot of this stuff. But it's a cool story. Yeah, to be fair, doctors can cause injuries, right? You say, except Malassia's doctor. And that's a funny one. That is a funny one, though, because my alerts, the alerts aren't reading out, are they? If someone can tell me. Malassia was supposed to basically did things on his own terms that were not on the club's, recommendations, and ended up in a much worse medical situation. So that's what happened there. So in that case, I guess technically a doctor caused an injury or something, but no. How bad was O'Driscoll? It's not that. I want to make something very, very clear. I'm not at liberty to share all of the details, but O'Driscoll leaving is not because he was bad, actually. In fact, United did experience an improvement over the final 6 months of this last season in the return rate, the speed of players returning from injury and getting back into fitness. And they were feeling that they have seen good incremental improvements with O'Driscoll, among many other things that are there, because it's not just O'Driscoll that they've worked on improving over the course of the season since Ineos have gotten in. The reason he's leaving is not because he's bad or he's 100% not getting sacked. It has nothing to do with it. It's purely, something down to him that he wants or something like that. But it's I can't say anything more than that. But he is 100% not being sacked, and I think that's important to note as well. Has nothing to do with it. And the other doctor got poached by a different club for, I think, a step up in the role. So it's not like they were leaving because the doctors were doing a terrible job. In fact, we'd seen improvements, but they do feel this is a good step moving forward as well. Agume this year, upgrade Ugarte to Baleba next year. I don't think we'll be getting Agume. I haven't heard any truth in that as of today myself. So I'm not going to say no, but I don't know anything on that one. Leverkusen's doctor's about to lose his license if they get blamed for injuries. You're absolutely right there. They've got a certain somebody. Oh, man. Anyway, so that's on the medical front. Good news. Just more improvements to the overall team, which is what we want. More improvements to the squad, to the unit, alongside, obviously, Carrington reopening. It will take a bit of time for Dr. Ahmad to join. and that's fine. And Gary O'Driscoll will remain here until then. If they thought he was terrible, he certainly wouldn't be staying for a long time during all of this to, he wouldn't be staying for a long time. Let's just put it that way. If he was so bad and causing problems or causing injuries, they wouldn't be keeping him around. O'Driscoll's fine. He's a good guy. So yes, that's it on the doctor. Now, I want to talk about the takeover-ish type of stuff, simply because it's a bit of a funky story. You guys have heard me talk about probably for months this whole clause thing that was ending on the 14th. And obviously there's a story today from Keegan and some others kind of going over it. A little bit of clickbait in this statement that United is back on the market. Not really, because United is not currently being shopped around by the Glazers. United is not being, they're not going around looking for investors. Well, maybe that's not totally true. They're not going around looking for new buyers or new owners. They're not doing the thing they did in the beginning where they publicly put the club on the market to look for buyers, and that's how they ended up with Sir Jim and Qatar and all of that. That's not happening. And the clause expiring has nothing really to do with that. The majority of the agreements that are in place between the Glazers and Ineos are still valid. Some for 3 years, some for 5 years, some for even longer than that. In the first 18 months, there was an agreement in place where I believe effectively, essentially what wasn't there were these things called drag-along rights. If tomorrow, based on this agreement expiring, if tomorrow somebody came in and offered the Glazers $6 billion for the club, they could force Sir Jim to sell. Okay, those are what's called drag-along rights or something like that. They can force Sir Jim to sell at the same price and move the club off. He has no say in the matter. So someone else could come in and buy the club, and Sir Jim and Ineos are out. That's what has changed. That is possible now. If someone else were to come in and do that, it would change. They could essentially be moved out of the club. However, at the same time, Ineos do have right of first refusal on any sort of offer. I think essentially means that they have the right to match any offer. So it's still not a bad thing. It's still not, it doesn't really change much. It just means if they didn't match the offer, they could be forced to sell, but they're still able to match that offer. They still have the sporting control. They still have things like that in place. The thing to bear in mind, it would be cheaper for SJR to match the price too. Right, and there was another thing in this, which I think is part of what expired. During that period, someone would have had to offer at least, I believe, the $33 per share that Ineos paid initially, right? That they paid, the $33 per share number. I believe that was part of that 18-month agreement now, and now the price is actually kind of open. I also believe that Ineos would have had to pay $33 a share if they wanted to buy more during this period. I could be slightly wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that that's also the case. Ineos still have the sporting control. They're still working together on all of this, but essentially now the floor is open if someone wanted to make an offer, and if he didn't match it, they would be able to force Ineos out of this. Not going to happen. Not something that's going to happen. The relationship between Sir Jim and the Glazers is pretty open and pretty direct. Obviously, you're not seeing much by way of evidence of Sir Jim trying to push for more ownership of the club to take more on. I don't think that you're going to see much evidence of that. It's the type of thing where if it happens or when it happens or how it happens will come out of nowhere, essentially, simply because you can't really like have a big thing that like you just kind of can't have anything else. It can't be like leaking about beforehand and things like that. And the agreement would be between them privately. I firmly believe that when the stadium project gets moving in earnest, we will hear more about this. These things can take a while, and these things can be slow, and there's no actual timeline that you can put on this kind of news, on this kind of thing. But what I am essentially looking out for is the stadium project on this front. When the stadium project is moving forward and you're looking at the requirement for multiple billions of dollars to be invested in the building of said stadium, then certainly a part of that, I guess, outlay, there's a pretty strong expectation that some of it will have to come via owner investment, and some of it will have to come via the potential further investment in the club from the owners. And so we'll have to kind of wait to see as that moves on. And the point here to note is this. As to your question, Rob, let's say the club today is worth $4 billion. With a new stadium, and if United get back on top and they have a new stadium and a new everything, how much would it be worth at that time? It might be $7 or $8 billion. There's a world wherein it is more profitable, or at least equally profitable, but much more, what's the word for it? Prestigious for the Glazers to let go of some more shares and allow that money to be reinvested into the stadium to ultimately increase their worth. Like, let's say their value is 60% of $4 billion today. It might be worth them having 40% of $10 billion. You know what I mean? It's worth more money. So there's math in this that can work out in their favor for them, which is what they would, essentially care about. That's why it's a point, because it's their business to sell. It's their business to do with what they please. Unfortunately, that is the truth of it. And so that's part of it. So this has been, I firmly believe, just a potential long-term look at it. I don't think it's like some sort of hostile takeover. It's not like out of like being done behind their backs, because their relationship between the parties is quite good. I think that it's an understandable plan. And it may well be that they'll be happy to become minority owners in the future that hold on to a club that's going to keep appreciating. Once they have that stadium, it will keep appreciating and appreciating and appreciating. There's no way for this stadium to happen, I think, without Sir Jim. It's impossible. I don't think there's any way for this stadium to happen without investment from Sir Jim. I don't think it's even possible. I think there's absolutely no way. And so there's mechanisms that could work here, and a business proposition that could work out. And it would mean he would become majority owner before the stadium is done, in that case, if it plays out this way. It's none of this is set in stone or written in stone, but I do believe there's a strategy, at play in order to, essentially make this happen. So that's a really interesting thing to keep in mind. And again, one of the stories that I'm still working on is tied and related to this. And the reason I think it's a big story is if I can confirm this, then it would indicate there's things moving in the right direction with regards maybe to the stadium, which to me means we're moving closer to potentially changes in the ownership model as well. Make sense? So I will see what I can confirm on this front and figure out further than that. Beyond that, obviously, we need to talk about transfers and what's happening today. It was really interesting to listen to. It was really interesting to listen to the Talk of the Devils podcast today and some of the things that they've talked about, which is one, Kabi Menu. As I've said many times, there was been no plans to sell him at the moment. I think it was Laurie who said he was told a few weeks ago that pretty concretely that he would not be sold. Now, if you take that at face value, then it means there is a plan for him to stay and find a long-term place in the team. Because otherwise they would have been willing to sell him to raise funds for a midfielder, as they were looking at a midfielder in Carlos Baleba at that same time and have needed money. So, essentially, there is a plan for Kabi Menu moving forward. I don't think we need to overreact to that one game, as I said, and let's see what happens in the future. That, to me, casts a little bit of doubt on why United would pursue, let's say, a move for Angelo Stiller, for example, because Angelo Stiller is a good player. All right, that story. I briefly mentioned him once a while back. I do know that a lot of clubs have looked at him. Obviously, Madrid have been very strongly linked to him for some time now as a club that he may land at. I wanted to show some more plots and things like that to help, but I can't get into the pro version of the Data MB that right now it seems to be down or having issues or something. I don't know why, but I can't get in. I don't know if anybody else has the Data.MB subscription, but the pro thing seems to be frozen or stuck at the moment. I can't get into it, so I can just show some other things here. I don't believe that Angelo Stiller is profiled as the same type of player as, like, could say clubs have been sniffing around him. Yeah. I don't think that he's been profiled as the same type of player as Baleba. He's not particularly that combative. He doesn't cover ground in kind of the same way. He's much more like, I think you'd play him, again, kind of next to a 6. You know what I'm saying? I think you'd kind of play him next to a 6, not as the 6. I don't think he would be replacing that. Closer to Wharton, not necessarily. Like, yes, closer to Adam Wharton, agreed. However, Adam Wharton has much more physical possession-winning traits. If you take a look, like, statistically on this, and look, you have to watch more of it to get a real idea. You just have to watch football, right? Unfortunately, guys, sometimes to get a full take on a player, you're just going to have to watch football. You can see that Stiller has these stunning forward passes. He is a really good player. Don't get me wrong on this at all. But when you look at possessions won, he falls quite well below it into much more of your attacking midfielder type of vein. He's right on with Bruno in that respect. He's a good player, and they say he can sniff out danger from a mile away. So come on, guys, be nice. But I don't think he's that profile. He's not that guy out of possession that is going to partner. So you'd have to ask the question and say, if you were to bring him in, you're probably not going to play Stiller and Bruno together, and you're probably not going to play Stiller and Kobbie Mainoo together. So he's also not particularly tall either. So you're kind of like almost like replacing. It would almost be like another replacement for Kobbie and Bruno, which I don't think is what we're trying to do at this point in time. You know what I mean? I don't see that as being logical. I don't want to like do that thing where I say someone else's news or something like that is wrong, you know, and just isn't correct.
Assume we are looking to partner Baleba with a more attacking / progressive player like Stiller, Wharton, Bruno?
Right, potentially Silence, but you have to bear in mind that if you were to partner Baleba and Wharton would be the deeper player probably in that situation, with Baleba having a free role to kind of roam around because he's a bit more energetic. But yeah, I think he's in the same vein as what, you know, he's not the same player, don't get me wrong, but he's more in the same vein of a player as Bruno, right? He's much more in the same vein as Bruno as a player than he is as that kind of deeper midfielder. So it's hard to pin him down. What I would say is this about it in my view, okay? In an Amorim midfield, where he really wants hard-working, hard-running, you know, ground eaters, Stiller's probably not the right guy for that. He doesn't really fit that. If Kobbie Mainoo is struggling to get in the game, look, let me just put it this way. If Kobbie Mainoo is struggling to get in the game to a degree because of his running, and by the way, Andy Mitten did confirm that view as well on To Talk of the Devils. He said he's not getting in the team because of running, by the way. I don't know if anybody missed that, but it wasn't an opinion when I say that. It's something that is essentially a point made by coaching staff. If he can't get in because of running, then why would Angelo Stiller get in? He's not better at it, you know, and he's not necessarily the defensive kind of dynamo in there. If you look at, I'll just put a few other names on here. Like let's take let's look at this. Let's look at Casemiro. You have to bear in mind, while Casemiro isn't much of a runner, his possessions won are absolutely tops. So he kind of sits deep and defends at a very, very high rate. So Casemiro is still that kind of guy. I mean, his charts look better than the reality. It kind of depends on the position. If you even look at Ederson, for example, you'll see kind of he is more in the vein of an Angelo Stiller. Very, very similar in that respect, though he's potentially a bit more flexible in how he plays, in my experience from watching him. So I would need to watch more because stats can't tell you all the tale, but you can get a bit of a picture of the different profiles. Adam Wharton is like Casemiro. Ederson and Stiller are kind of the opposite profile. And then Baleba, you don't see a ton by the stats yet, but he's kind of in everything. He just does everything. He just does everything to an exceptional level. That's the reality of it, okay? So he doesn't look like the right partner. Otherwise, we probably could have just gone for Ederson, you know? The charts give you a hint. The charts don't tell you everything. The charts don't tell you everything. Ederson does tend to play more forward, which is why his stats look like that, and the same goes for Stiller. Now, I've seen Ederson play in many different ways as well, but still. Yeah, Casemiro you can see on the first game against Arsenal what Casemiro can do when he doesn't have to move a ton like crazy. So it's an interesting link. It's one to think about in general, but I'm not certain that he fits what they're looking for. This is an attacking midfielder. When you look at what Stiller excels at, expected assists, passes in the final third, passes in the penalty, or crosses in the penalty. I mean, look at this passing. He is an absolute menace in terms of passing. But look at his tackling stats. They're awful. Like, awful out of possession play. He is not a good defender at all. Okay? That's just not his game. Penalty kicks won. You know, like this is look in the air. You're not sticking a guy in the 24th percentile of aerials won and a near bottom, in the 8th percentile of tackles as your 6. I don't think that's I don't think this is the right guy, especially playing next to Bruno. Right? I don't think there's any world where he plays next to Bruno Fernandes, okay? That's the truth. So you could probably put him next to a defender, but he is not playing next to Bruno. There's just no way. There's just no way. You got to have a hard worker. More like Toni Kroos. Okay, sure. And you'd want to have a Casemiro next to him, right? Like Toni Kroos did. That makes a lot of sense. So it's an interesting link that a lot of clubs have been looking at. That a lot of clubs have been thinking about, and I don't think he's the right guy. Now, if you bought him today, you could say, well, we're pre-replacing Bruno Fernandes, okay, or Kobbie Mainoo, I guess. But otherwise, you're just adding another one into that kind of position. I don't see where the minutes will come into play this summer. If you were going to sell Bruno Mainoo next summer, he'd be a good one to bring in and to add Baleba to it. And that would be great. You could have a Baleba Stiller midfield for sure. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't reflect. Like if you look at what we've been looking at Baleba, Yeoman, Wharton. All of them can play that deep role and are defensive players. They're strong defensive profiles. Here, let's actually plug Hjulmand in here too, so you can still see it, right? It's really quite interesting because when you look at it, all of them are kind of the same, even though Hjulmand's possessions one is a little lower. Partially it's because they play such high possession. Similar. He's more in the same shaping of type of player as, again, Wharton and Casemiro. They're all similar players. Yeoman, Wharton, Casemiro, they're all very similar. This is very different. Your dumbass was searching for Ben Stiller. Very good, yeah. But he is a good player. So, if you're going to pre-replace Bruno, you could think about it, but I don't know. I don't think it makes sense right now. I wouldn't do it today. I'd be surprised if United made that kind of move, because if we have the money to buy another player before selling somebody, it should be a goalkeeper. Like, if we're going to buy a player in a position we don't need and we have the money to do that, then we should buy a goalkeeper. We shouldn't be buying a number 8 who's not going to play much right now because we actually have good options there, when we could just buy a goalkeeper. Like, if you look at the situations, they're similar. We need a goalkeeper. We have a couple of goalkeepers that have not been very good, that someone's probably going to leave later. If you look at the number 8s, we have 2 players who are very good. Why would we buy a third one if we have the money to buy before a sale there? We should buy a goalkeeper. If we have extra money to buy in a position we don't need right now, then buy a goalkeeper. And that would be much more impactful. Like, if you could ask, we could poll this. I'm curious what you guys think. If you ask me today, new goalkeeper or Angelo Stiller, it's not because Stiller isn't a good player. I'm picking a new goalkeeper every single time. Let's poll it. Let's see if you guys agree with me on this. You probably will, but I am curious. Let's see. There we go. Let's put the poll up. Ba-ba-ba-bum. Oh, wow. Yeah. 88%. Okay. Well, I just sold it too, so you guys are probably voting because I said so, but I actually think you guys will mostly agree. Picking a new keeper over everyone but Baleba. Me too. Me too, Hungry Belly. Me too. I wish I could show that data thingy because I've if I could show the pro thing, because I've profiled quite a few of the right type of midfielder for what we need right now, and kind of compared them to some of the names, and some of them it makes a lot of sense why they show up, and then there's ones like that where I don't understand why they show up. Like they don't show up as the right guy in that position. At the moment, you would play the goalkeeping coach in goal. Yeah. You don't need Stiller in a back three. Each good midfield three is a deep playmaker, defensive eight, and attacking. Hey, the playmaker for Amram is the center backs. Essentially. A decent goalkeeper would gain us more points than another midfielder. Yeah, true. Yeah, look, if we had a new goalkeeper, we probably get 3 points on Sunday. If we had Stiller, I don't think it changes our performance. In fact, it might have been worse. True or not? Did you know James Vitinha has a 70 million clause next summer? Did not know that.
Could our reason for not signing a GK this summer be we are planning to bring Vitek back next summer if he continues being successful?
Maybe. Could we even bring him back in January? It's an unknown. Do we have that recall clause that we could even bring him back in January if he's performing really well? I don't know. I suppose there's a possibility in that as well. So something to think about. Something to think about as well. So on that, let's do one more poll here. Just out of curiosity today, we'll do the vote. We'll do our vote tomorrow. And then I just want to talk about some of the sales again. Which of these three keepers would you start right now? If it was Wharton, yeah, look, if it was a 6, Wharton or Baleba, I would pick them over a keeper. If it's not a 6, I'm not interested, frankly. This is the wildest poll I've ever seen, actually. It's shocking. Although I do remember Heaton nearly won last Friday as well. So maybe it's not shocking. Wow. Very impressive. I told Tom Heaton in the tunnel that he should go for that number 1 spot. It seems like people have taken. I did not think it would be a possibility, but we have reached the point where I'm actually do wonder whether he would start on Sunday or the cup game next week. And where I wonder about that, you know? I was joking to a degree, and he was like, come on, like, he's 39 years old. And he was like, I'm 39, like, there's no way, like, but then again, it was fun. Yeah, it was good. It was good. And as someone pointed out, it was funny because I didn't remember that Onana was standing right behind me when I did that, but hey. I'm not sure Onana is the best of the 3 maple syrup. Like, I'll be quite honest with you. One of the things that I think was underrated about that Altai performance is the fact that, like, people say he didn't have much to do. He didn't have a lot to do. You know why? Because he actually passed the ball to his teammates instead of to the other team. That is a factor. When's the last time we played without a striker and we were actually able to pass the ball to our teammates? When's the last time we were able to pass the ball to our teammates and not constantly give it back? Because my feeling has been that whenever we watch Onana play, more than half the time he kicks the ball, it's coming right back, and it puts us under pressure, and it puts us in danger and creates attacks for the opposition. One of the reasons Altai had very little to do is because his passing actually worked. His passing actually worked. He actually gave him to the teammates and helped us get up the pitch. And that helped us to not lose the ball. So, I don't know. I think that's a factor. All right, we're going to end it right there. What was the end result? It looked like it was tied to me. I'm waiting for the poll. 39%, an actual tie. So that'll be fun. I guess we'll find out on Sunday. We'll find out up against Grimsby. We'll find out. Yeah, Bayindir had the second best passing stats of any player this weekend. I think fourth was Mount and fifth was Casemiro. Like, there was 4 United players in that top 10. It was Bayindir, Mount, Casemiro, and was it Cunha or Mbumo? One of them was in there. Shaw, was it? Somebody was in there. There was like 4. There was 4 United players in there. I don't remember who it was. But yeah, I was quite impressed. The passing was really solid. Shaw, yeah. Shaw's proven me right, and I hope he continues to do so. I really like Luke Shaw. All right. So then the last thing is, obviously, if we're going to make any kind of move in the next 10 days, we're going to need some sales. And it seems like we're getting that slow kind of progress on the outs. As we discussed, Rasmus Højlund yesterday, he is still in talks with Napoli. This is not a matter of now, essentially, it's not really a club matter. He wants that permanent move with Napoli. Need to see if Napoli will offer that obligation. United are kind of open to whatever. So it seems like the discussion is between him and Napoli to sort it out at this point in time and see if they're going to offer that kind of obligation. And then it likely will happen at this point in time. Garnacho, obviously we keep hearing about Chelsea. It's happening when? But today, Nicholas Jackson strongly heating up his story, moving to either Newcastle, Bayern, or Aston Villa, all kind of pushing to make a purchase now. I think the sale of him will predicate the purchase of Garnacho from Chelsea, and we'll actually get some sort of offer in that hopefully is acceptable. And then we'll see what we make a move for. Nobody wants to rule out anything. And my biggest thing now is look and see. Is Onana left out of the squad again on Sunday? Because if Onana is left out of the squad again on Sunday, is it a similar situation to Rasmus Højlund where he's being told, you might need to find Turkey. You might need to find a move to Turkey. And then we make some sort of keeper purchase. It's possible. I think Sunday will be really telling on that front what Ruben Amorim decides and where he is at and if this changes. The keeper, the narrative around the keepers has been the most confusing thing the whole summer. Because I know for a fact and have said for almost a year that United are looking at keepers, and they certainly have been. And they made a loan offer for Emi Martinez. But then you get every other day, want a keeper, don't want a keeper, want a keeper, don't want a keeper, all of that. And you don't know what's the outcome of all of that. I'm just curious. If you listen to what Laurie said on the Talk of the Devils as well, it was not like a settled necessarily answer. You know what I mean? It was not a settled answer for what the story was on Onana. It was not that settled. It was like something worth investigating. I don't think it was just fitness, but we'll see what happens with that. I think there's more to look into to this, as he said. So I'm really curious. Other than that, I don't know, man. We sell some players. Maybe we attempt a late offer for Adam Wharton, but it just feels like there's no way they're going to sell. So we'll see what else. We'll see what else comes in the ensuing days. But let's see how this Rasmus situation plays out, and then let's see, if Chelsea get this money in and make that purchase, because certainly either way, we need some money. Either way, we need some money. That's the important thing. We need some money. And then maybe we go for Lamens. And I think Laurie also kept us linked to Lamens and Diogo Costa, two that we've talked about a lot over the last few years. One who we should have bought instead of Onana back in the day. So, all right, guys, that's it. I'm going to end it there because I've got to go. I can't be late on what I'm doing next after this school thing, like I said. I'll be back tomorrow. News show very early in the morning. A live later, the squad vote, all of that. Thank you all for hanging out today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on. I'll see you in